Sup nerds? Welcome to a very special episode of the Boss Battle Show, where this time we're going to break down the greatest and the most amazing stuff that happened in geek and video games to us in 2017. My name is Adam Ronan. Let's get weird. Alright guys, let's just get right into the nitty and the gritty, because 2017 was absolutely one of my most favorite years in gaming in recent memory. So of course we had tons of story-driven games that came through and showed us that single player is not dead despite what EA says. Fighting games came back hard with a lot of amazing titles showing us that the genre is not dead. Not that anyone thought it was, at least in this community. Nintendo came back, showed us that they can be the kings that we all knew they once were. Let's just break down some of our highlights of some of our most favorite things. Right off the bat, when Q1 2017 came in, Nintendo really came out of the gate and just kind of was like, hey, the Nintendo Switch, here we go. So in March when the Switch launched, they launched with Legend of Zelda, and it was probably one of the best investments that me, myself, Gordy, and Timmy, and everybody else in our close-knit circle, poured our money into, because it has time and time again proven itself to be a fantastic machine, and it really just put Nintendo back on the map. There was so much flack that Nintendo had gotten over the last few, decade, when they launched the Wii that started out strong and then kind of tapered off, then the Wii U that was just like a big what the fuck type of thing, and then the Switch really nailed it home that they absolutely still do understand their consumer base, and it started the year out great. I was like, okay 2017, you want to give us some games, you want to give us some Nintendo, I am listening with my wallet. And that's the first highlight I want to just say is, out of the bat, we have to give props to Nintendo, because they really came out and just gave us everything that we as gamers had wanted. Of course, there's a couple little nitpicks that we can make with the Switch, like the fact that it's, party chat functionality and no virtual console and stuff like that, and, paid online features that have been delayed continuously. All that aside, an amazing showing from Nintendo, especially with the games Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey and others. I couldn't be happier with the way Nintendo showed in 2017. You know what I'm saying? Next thing I want to say, it's like 2017 was really just a return to greatness for a lot of fallen heroes. So the next thing that really just kind of captivated me, impressed me, was the release of Assassin's Creed Origins. So immediately when they announced this, I was like, okay, I'm down, because I'd skipped the last few entries, because with it being an annual release, it just kind of got tired and boring and kind of the same old shtick over and over again. Especially with locations like London and all that I just wasn't particularly attached to murder people in, if you know what I'm saying. But then when they announced Origins, they took a couple years off, and they're like, here we go, we're building the series up from the ground up, and here's Assassin's Creed Origins taking place in ancient Egypt, with a whole new protagonist and storyline. Yeah, sign me up. And then when it finally dropped late 2017, I absolutely enjoyed it. I put in maybe 30-40 hours into it. I'm really taking my time with the story, and the combat engine took a little bit to grow on me, but it is just top notch. It's like a huge, if you haven't played it yet, it's like a excellent foray into action RPG a la like The Witcher and stuff like that, but with Assassin's Creed revamped engine and climbing things that you know and love from the series. I'm very happy with where it came, and after we bitched and moaned about how they never went to Japan, rumors are abound that the next release is going to be taking place in feudal Japan, which will be interesting to see how that compares to Ghost of Tsushima that's coming out, which we're just like, oh, you know what I'm saying? Just like, give me that shiz. So I really think that Ubisoft, early in the year they impressed me with For Honor. It's an underrated title, I think, but then to close out the year, they brought me Assassin's Creed Origins, which, microtransactions and stuff aside, is a fantastic entry into the series, and I hope is rebooting it to a new greatness that we'll see in the coming years. One of the reasons I loved the Assassin's Creed Origins is because I'm a huge single-player type of guy. I love games where they have a deep story that captivate me, that I just spend on my couch growing and loving the characters, protagonist, antagonist, conflict, and things like that. And this game gave that to me, and there was a lot of single player driven experiences that came out in 2017 that I was just in love with, because there are some companies out there that say single player's dead, and my main underlying point of this video is, if anything, 2017 showed us that the single player experience is very much well alive. So Assassin's Creed Origins gave us an excellent experience. I really enjoyed South Park Fractured Butthole. I like to say it as it was intended, the fractured butthole. That was an excellent RPG experience, hilarious. If you played the first one, you would love the second one. That was an excellent single player experience. Mordor Shadow of War was just a fantastic entry into that series. I know a lot of people are, if you're a big Tolkien nerd, aren't appreciative of what they're doing with the Mordor, Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor series, but I really like it. It's very fun, very Assassin's Creed-y, if you're catching my drift here. Destiny 2 made a good showing finally with an excellent story mode that actually pulled me in because I did not care for the first game. And then Battlefront 2, with all of its qualms and awful press that it got, the story mode had some elements to it, while albeit very short, was a fantastic foray into the Star Wars canon that I am a big fan of. And then of course, we all know, because I know you love them, and we here are huge advocates of the fighting game genre, and I really think that 2017 came out hard with the release of several excellent, really top-notch fighting games. So like we have Injustice 2 came out, Tekken 7, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, Nidhogg 2, which some people will argue is a fighting game, but it is. There was of course Street Fighter remained at the top, albeit the problems it had, that they had, the player base was huge there. And then even though a lot of you will disagree with me, I still consider For Honor to be a fighting game, and I thought it was incredibly underrated. It did not get enough attention. Of course they had a lot of server issues at launch. There were some things that kind of hindered it when it first came out, but a fantastic melee experience between two fighters or more. I think the For Honor was great, but with, you know, NetherRealm Studios with their Injustice 2 was just an outrageous effort, I feel. Even if you're not part of the NetherRealm camp, you can't deny the quality that that game is and everything that it has to offer you for 60 to 80 bucks, depending on how much you spend on it. In Tekken 7, what a masterpiece of a title. Just a really great showing for fighters. Of course, I think a lot of things fell short for Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. It might be starting to catch its stride now, and we'll kind of see what happens with the purchase of 20th Century Fox by Disney. Maybe that will give us some of the characters that we're missing, so to speak. But that's, you know, a discussion for another time. But even though that game was more casually based and wasn't receptive as well as you probably wanted it to be, I still think it was a fantastic effort by Capcom. Just a great year for fighters. I think that was, all those titles were just excellent highlights for the year. Now, of course, those were things that we dug, you know, we kind of all discussed, and that's what we nailed on. That was the most impressive 2017 in our opinions. Of course, there are things that come out of buttholes and just, what's that smell? It's shit. Yeah, there was a lot of shitty stuff in 2017, and let's just kind of get into some of the things that were really kind of sad. First thing that really is breaking me up to this day is the dismantling of Visceral Games Studios. So we had the Star Wars story-driven game that was coming out by Visceral Games, led by Amy Hennig of Uncharted fame. So we were very excited about what that was going to come out, because that was probably going to be an excellent Star Wars story, single-player driven experience that they've dismantled and kind of handed off to a different studio to make probably more of a multiplayer experience. So RIP to that. That was like a huge loss for those of us that are kind of yearning for more in the Star Wars universe in terms of video games. That was a huge bummer. That fucking sucked, you know what I'm saying? And then of course the biggest snafu, I think, in terms of gaming for 2017 was the EA Battlefront 2 loot box controversies. They really tarnished what ultimately is a very well put together experience and a great game with greed. And, you know, we've talked about it before. The loot box system, the pay to win mechanics was a huge just shit in our mouths experience for those of us that are loyal to gaming, and we're loyal to the Battlefront franchise since 2003 and 4 when the first game came out. So we've been waiting for a long time for a true experience, and while this touches on hints of what we wanted from Battlefront 2, it was ultimately marred by EA's awful business practices, which sparked tons of possible litigation across the United States and even the whole world in terms of gambling and all kinds of stuff. And that was just like, if you didn't think EA was garbage before, now you're probably like pounding on their door with your pitchfork. You're like, I'm here to stab you to death and burn you in hell. And the final thing we're gonna cap off with the feces of 2017 was, you know, because there's always balance between the light and the dark side, and Nintendo is, you know, they're not safe from this either. So they really hit it home with the Nintendo Switch, but then they also just crashed and burned with what I feel was their business tactics for the NES Classic at the beginning of the year. When that came out, it basically just festered into an EA scalper fest, you know, who could sell as many copies as they could for as much money. You couldn't find it. I've never found it. Gordy's never found it. Tim never found it. None of us ever found it, and we're still kind of bitter about it to this day. Though we did end up getting any Super NES Classics. I feel like they altered their business tactics for that too. But and then when they suddenly discontinued the NES Classic, they're like, "You didn't get it? Sucks to be you, you sucking sucker." And that, I felt, was like, "Come on, Nintendo, what are you doing? I've been with you for a long time. Why are you trying to dog me like that, dog?" Of course, Nintendo has rumblings that they said they're going to bring back the NES Classic in 2018, so hopefully by the end of next year we can say, oh, the NES Classic was one of our highlights. But those were the things that I felt were the crappiest about gaming in 2017. Go! So let's just break down some things, because a lot of you are asking, what was your favorite thing that came out this year? What was your favorite game? What was your favorite toy? Well, let's just tell you. So let's get into fighting games. So there was a lot of fighting games that we talked about, and we played them all pretty significantly, but what one was our favorite? Well, it probably doesn't surprise you to hear me say that I think that Injustice 2 was my pick for fighting game of the year. Not because it was the best game, while I think it played well, I love the mechanics, and I actually ultimately have the most fun with it, but I think it gave you the most bang for your buck. And I really think that Ed Boon and company are really just hammering it home with the amount of content you get for the money you spend, because a lot of these days $60 gives you a bare bone experience. But this time, you know, I feel like they really just, with the gear system and the fleshed out amazing cinematic story mode, I had to give it that, because it was just an excellent masterpiece of a game. No piece of art is without its flaws, but I loved it the most for fighting games. Now, when it comes to just games overall, this should come to no surprise to any of you, because I think this was unanimously picked with every media outlet that Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was hands down the absolute best gaming experience for me. Knocked it out of the park. It was an emotional, long drawn out, adventurous experience for me, and it was almost like in a religious moment for me. When I put hundreds of hours into it, and I still haven't discovered every little thing, and I'm going through it again right now with the expansions, and for a game to just affect me like that inside is something that only certain titles like Legend of Zelda, Super Mario Brothers could do throughout my entire life. It was a real big toss-up between Legend of Zelda and Super Mario Odyssey, because Odyssey was just flat out incredible as well, but ultimately I had to give that win to Legend of Zelda, because that was really just a perfect experience when it came to what I want out of true gaming. Going from that, of course, is what was our favorite piece of tech for the year. So obviously, you know, we reviewed a few fight sticks, reviewed some other stuff. The Xbox One X came out, which I was a pretty big fan of. There's a lot of neat, fun tech for 2017, but ultimately, Nintendo really slayed the game, and I would have to give Tech of the Year to the Nintendo Switch. I think it's just a fantastic evolution of what gaming can be, going from a traditional home console to a portable console, all with amazing graphics, a couple flaws here and there, but gaming on the go is fantastic, and the titles are released with it and are coming out. I have to give it to them because it's a huge true to form of what we all knew Nintendo could be. God damn it, I'm excited about Nintendo. And then, finally, the last thing we're gonna do is, what was the toy of the year? I bought a lot of toys this year. Let's see, we got Last Jedi, all those toys came out. Spent a lot of money on Star Wars figures. There was the Star Wars movie realization figures that we reviewed. Those were incredible toys as well. There's a lot of superhero stuff. There was a lot of stuff that we got. But ultimately, when you get me in my childhood feels, is really when the cows come home. I have to give Toy of the Year award to Mad Balls in every way possible. And they really, so many showings of Mad Balls. And this kind of started back in late 2016, but with the release of the new line that kind of plays off of the cartoon that they have on YouTube, and then Kid Robot came out with their line and their horror movie, Mad Balls. It was just a huge year for the balls, so to speak. And I don't think we're gonna see a lot more from Mad Balls in 2018. I really think 2017 was their year. I think we'll see a lot of stuff discontinued from them going forward. So while the moment is hot, I have to give one final shout out to Madballs. Thanks for being an amazing toy my whole life, and I really think they showed well in 2017. I'm interested to see what happens in 2018, if anything, with the line. Not likely though. Target and everyone's kind of putting them on clearance, so I think they're kind of dying out already, which is sad, but you know, fuck, it's great. Good shit. Okay, closing out the show. You know what time it is. Maybe you don't, because we've only done one episode, but it's time for Rad Shit. Rad Shit is every episode we're gonna show you one piece of cool, be it toy or technology or something expensive that would be really cool to own that we think that you guys might enjoy as well. And I'm particularly excited for the Mortal Kombat 5.5 inch Funko action figures that are very reminiscent of the retro He-Man style figures. These are coming out in January, retailing for $14.99, and you can pre-order them now. I've pre-ordered them, if you can imagine. We'll probably do a review on them. There's a link in the description if you're looking to buy them as well. I'm super excited about those. Not gonna break your bank, but if you are a retro collector and you also love fighting games, the mesh of the two, you can't beat sometimes what Funko does. It's just fantastic. Super excited to get my hands on those. And if you don't know about them, now you do. That's what that's for. Showcase rad shit that you need in your life. So guys, that's this week's edition of Boss Battle Show. So we kind of wrapped up last year, 2017, and now we're looking to the horizons for 2018. So let me know in the comments below, what are you hoping to see in video games in 2018? What's announced that you're looking forward to? Where's your heart lie within the geek? Let me know, because I am Adam Ronin. That back there is Gordy.
Yo!
And this is the Boss Battle Show. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this experience. If you're new to the channel, welcome to the family. We'll see you next week. Boom, boom, boom. Gordy, play me out. 2017 was not too shitty.
Up, down, left, right, BA selected.